Labor shortages, rising cost, and the Omicron surge seem to have taken a toll on business leaders' confidence. In fact, the latest survey from the Conference Board in collaboration with the Business Council showed that confidence among CEOs fell for the third straight quarter in the first quarter of 2022. For details on that survey and much more, we're joined right now by Roger Ferguson, who is Distinguished Fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, former CEO of TIAA, and the former Vice Chairman of the Federal Reserve. He's also a CNBC contributor. And Roger, this is really interesting to see that CEO confidence is dropping overall. It's kind of surprising when you consider how strong the economy is at this point. What happened?
Well, you're right. It is a little bit surprising, and particularly given that this is a third survey in which the results have been down slightly. Let me emphasize that it's at 57, which is still positive territory, so they're still expecting growth. But I think what this is telling us is that the challenges continue to remain from the standpoint of the CEO. This was fielded a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, Omicron was still on everyone's mind. The question of inflation is still very much something that's going on in boardrooms and C-suites. And even against that backdrop, there's an expectation that interest rates will be going up, so the cost of money will be rising. So I think this is simply saying it's a pretty challenging time for CEOs right now.
You did point out that this was taken a few weeks ago when Omicron was running a lot hotter. If you were to retake that survey today, do you think people might feel a little bit better? We're talking about dropping some of the mask mandates, people going back into the office. Maybe that changes the outlook a little bit?
I think it changed the outlook, but only slightly. So I think if this were reported as of yesterday or done yesterday, I think we still see the same general trends because, after all, even though these changes are, as you point out, things getting moderately better, it's only moderate. And importantly, CEO expectations of the future conditions also have come down a little bit. So I think this is really an accumulation of many quarters of stresses and strains that all of us have felt, including the folks at the C-suite level. Yeah,
admittedly, it's kind of scary when you realize that inflation is running so hot. We're looking for that other number today. One thing I thought was really interesting in the data, though, was when you asked CEOs about what they thought overall, they were a little more pessimistic than when you asked what they thought about their industry. They're a little more optimistic when they're talking about what they're actually seeing. And I wonder if that means they're susceptible, just like the rest of us are, to some of the bad headlines that are out there.
I think it's absolutely true. And I think also in your own industry, you know the levers to pull. You understand the competitive dynamics. You've been working in those industries for, in some cases, decades. And so it may be for CEOs a little easy to understand how to maneuver in their own industries and perhaps in other industries, other sectors where they don't have exactly the same visibility. So some of this may be familiarity breeds a certain degree of comfort, so to speak.